Good evening. This is the Daily Report from Nairobi, and I'm Victor Muyakane. And now the headlines. Tonight
was meant to shield the three Kenyan companies from paying the 30% corporate tax.
a war of words ensues over the controversial government-to-government oil deal, with the government calling out Odinga for what they say is misleading Kenyans.
Mr. Odinga purporting to give what he had billed as a dossier, but which fell short of what can be described as a short script of hot air.
And the death toll of persons who have perished as a result of the floods rises to at least 50, with tens of thousands of households displaced.
Tafadhali sana kama serikali wetu wa area tusaidiwe.
This, as the weatherman says, the rains are still with us. And the government set to increase the salaries for the National Police Service, the National Youth Service, and the Kenya Prison Service officers by 40% over the next 3 years.
Review the pay, living conditions, medical cover, housing, and other aspects of welfare for police.
All that and so much more we have in store for you this evening from the Home of Untold Stories, TV47 in Muthaiga, Nairobi. A little bit later on Insight Tonight, we'll be talking about children, when children mess up and when children get into conflict with the law. We're talking about that later on tonight. Children in conflict with the law. The SMS line or the WhatsApp line is at the bottom corner of your screen. The call line is also open at the bottom corner of your screen. Let us know where you're watching us from. Let us know your thoughts, your opinions, and your questions about this. We shall be having, later on, we shall be having Dr. Mutuma Rutere, who's the CEO of the National Crime Research Center. We're looking at children and crime. Send in your questions and we shall be able to have them answered and looked after live and direct tonight. My sign language co-anchor tonight is Rhoda Nyamai. And with that, we are up and away. The government has defended the government-to-government oil supply contracts, and we shall be giving you that story a little bit later on. But first, we begin with the floods, the heavy rains which have been confirmed as El Niño rains that have been witnessed in most parts of the country continue to wreak havoc, with the Kenya Red Cross reporting that at least 50 Kenyans have lost their lives due to the floods and over 78,000 households displaced across the country. In Tana Delta sub-county of Tana River County, over 11,000 households have been affected by the floods, with the number expected to rise. And as our reporter, Grace Kuriakanja, now tells us, the weatherman says that the country should expect more rain, at least in the next coming days.
Such is the situation in Tana Delta sub-county of Tana River County. Villages are no longer accessible, leaving most locals trapped.
Tafadhali sana kama serikali wetu wa area tusaidiwe.
However, most do not want to leave the area they have called home for years, citing the lack of amenities for survival in the areas they will relocate to.
Hatuna maneti na kitu cha kufunikia. Tuseme kuweka juu ili kujisitiri ile mvua kupate.
Iwapo wataweza kutoka katika sehemu hii na waende sehemu nyingine, basi tutaweza kuwapatia vifaa hivyo kufikia kesho.
According to the Kenya Red Cross, at least 50 Kenyans have lost their lives due to the floods. Over 78,000 households have been displaced. Over 11,000 livestock deaths have been recorded, with at least 1,000 businesses destroyed. Red Cross estimates that the number of households affected shall increase if the situation prevails.
Zaidi ya familia 300 zimeathirika katika mafuriko haya.
The situation also witnessed along the Mombasa-Lungalunga Road in Kwale and the Kwa-Kadzengo area, where the rains have destroyed critical road infrastructure. Meanwhile, the Kenya Meteorological Department is telling you that the current weather conditions are set to continue for a while. In its latest forecast release, the daily forecast from the 16th to the 20th November, Kenya Met largely predicts rains over a few places in the morning in the highlands west of the Rift Valley, Lake Victoria Basin and the Rift Valley. That is areas like Siaya, Kisumu, Homa Bay, Migori, Kisii, Nyamira, Trans Nzoia, Baringo, Uasin Gishu, Elgeyo Marakwet, Nandi, Nakuru, Narok, Kericho, Bomet, Kakamega, Vihiga, Bungoma, Busia and West Pokot counties, as well as showers and thunderstorms over several places in the afternoon and night. There shall, however, be some sunny intervals on the mornings of Friday to Sunday. In the northwestern region, particularly Turkana and Samburu counties, Kenya Met predicts largely rains over a few places in the morning, a chance of showers over a few places in the afternoon and night, and some sunny intervals on the afternoons of Saturday and Sunday. In the highlands east of the Rift Valley, including Nairobi, and areas like Nyandarua, like Kipia, Nyeri, Kirinyaga, Murang'a, Kiambu, Meru, Embu, Tharaka Nithi counties, they shall largely experience rains over a few places in the morning, with a chance of showers over a few places in the afternoon and night. In the northeastern region, that is Marsabit, Mandera, Wajir, Garissa, and Isiolo counties, they shall largely experience rains over a few places in the morning, with a chance of showers over a few places in the afternoon and night. The southeastern lowlands region, which includes areas like Kitui, Makueni, Machakos, Kajiado and Taita Taveta counties, shall experience rains over a few places in the morning, showers over a few places in the afternoon and night. Friday morning shall, however, see some sunny intervals. And in the coastal region, which comprises Mombasa, Tana River, Kilifi, Lamu and Kwale counties, there shall be showers over a few places in the morning, showers over a few places in the afternoon and night. Saturday afternoon shall, however, see some sunny intervals. Grace Kuriakanja, TV47.
I believe those of this generation would say Grace Kuriakanja is giving Ngwata Francis. And with that out of the way, things are thick. The William Ruto government is asking for 2 more years to fix the country's pinching cost of living. And they propose to do this by stabilizing the economy, and while at the same time stating that this government has done what is possible at the moment to bring down this very cost of living by introduction of a number of measures, including subsidizing of fertilizer and the recent one, which is the introduction of the Fuel Stabilization Fund. And as Moige William reports, Kenyans are of a contrary opinion, lamenting that the situation is not yet better, with traders moving to neighboring countries of Tanzania and Uganda to acquire cheaper products for sale.
We must always make the right decision, however difficult it may be.
Sentiments that come as a salt to injury to the millions of the already struggling Kenyans who at the moment choke under the yoke of the skyrocketing prices of basic commodities. On Wednesday, government spokesperson Isaac Mwaura noted that the storm before the calm will last for at least 2 years or bait, pointing out that the prices of a number of basic commodities among them maize, flour and milk has gone down.
And President William Ruto and the Kenya Kwanza administration, the government has actually been able to do quite well in terms of ensuring that we don't sink further.
Hakuna kitu imepunguza isipokuwa tu ni kupanda inapanda.
And in a spot check in a number of the main chain stores within the country's capital for the prices of some of the basic commodities, maize flour is retailing between 270 and 149 shillings. 1 litre of cooking oil is at between 400 and 285 shillings, half litre of milk trading at between 77 to 47 shillings, with a kg of sugar at 225 to 219 shillings.
1,000 kuipata ni shinda, lakini kuitumia ni ngumu. Twende hapa, ukichukua kama mafuta ya kupikia na unga 1,000 imeisha, hapo hujapata mboga.
Kwa hakika Kenya tuko na shida, tunahitajika kitu kifanyike ambacho kitatusaidia at least nasi pia tukawe na hali nzuri ya uchumi.
In his inaugural media briefing, the government spokesperson alluded that the situation of the country could have been much worse, with business persons in border towns revealing that they have been forced to bring in commodities from neighboring countries to sustain their businesses and sell affordable products to Kenyans, as some of the basic commodities are cheaper in countries like Uganda and Tanzania compared to locally produced products.
Bei ya Uganda na huku Kenya. Uganda ni afadhali, tunagomboaka afadhali hizi ndizi kuliko huku Kenya.
Pale bandarini wale wanaleta mali kwa wholesale pia nao wametupandishia.
Hii hata ukinunua kitu na ukipeleka mitaani ukisema wenda uza, watu pia wananchi wanalalamika, wanasema tunawagonga.
The waiting for the cost of living to go down continues.
The government states that the cost of living has been gradually going down, but on the other hand, mwananchi insists that the cost of living is still unbearable. Mwege William, TV47.
As people are talking about things being thick, the Azimio and Kenya Kwanza coalitions are pulling in different directions in the ongoing bipartisan talks. This with Azimio leader Raila Odinga warning that the opposition will withdraw from the talks if the Kenya Kwanza government does not cede ground on the opposition's cost of living demands. This in the backdrop of a looming threat of the return of mass action or maandamano if the talks, which ended prematurely on Wednesday, collapse. National Assembly leader Kimani Ichung'wah, majority leader rather, has termed Azimio's threat as an arm-twisting tactic to have the government reintroduce food and fuel subsidies.
Ahead of a crucial sitting for the National Dialogue Committee on Wednesday next week, Azimio has now threatened to go back to mass action should Kenya Kwanza fail to implement the opposition's fresh demands on the cost of living. Azimio leader Raila Odinga and co-principal Martha Karua putting President William Ruto on notice on the possibility of withdrawing from the talks.
Tumesema gharama ya maisha mpaka irudi chini. Hiyo ni moja ya masharti ya mazungumzo yetu. Kama hawezi kukubali yale, hiyo tunasema hakuna mazungumzo, hakuna maafikiano.
Should the talks fail as they are looking, they are failing. Yes. We shall not forgo our rights. We shall go back to the streets if necessary. Yes. We are going to exercise our civil, political and human rights to the fullest.
Yes. Kenya Kwanza, led by National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah, says the government will not budge on Azimio's demands, dismissing the latest threat as an attempt by Azimio to intimidate the government to reintroduce fuel and food subsidies.
And they probably think they can now use the masses to arm twist the Kenya Kwanza government to reintroduce fuel and food subsidies that were fueling and driving corruption that was benefiting those who were in power then. And because some of them had planned and knew the plans they had to perpetuate that culture of subsidies, especially around fuel, they imagined that they can use either the dialogue process or the hogwash that we have seen being billed as dossiers to blackmail government.
In the wake of the standoff between the two sides, the Catholic Church has called for restraint and sobriety to save the talks from collapse.
We want to ask our political leaders to enter into dialogues not only for their political party interests, but for the interests of the Kenyans. We want to insist, encouraging dialogue which is not an end on itself, the dialogue that will create relationships, that will create a nation.
Azimio, which wants punitive taxes in the Finance Act 2023 scrapped or reduced, including government officials' travel, and the enactment of a law to ban state and public officers from running businesses while in service, is a step up from previous demands, among them the opening of 2022 election result servers and an end to interference of political parties by the state. Apul Kamau, TV47.
The National Assembly of Kenya has approved the deployment of 1,000 police officers to Haiti to help them deal with rising gang violence in the Caribbean nation. The heated debate, however, saw opposition leaders vehemently reject the plans for the government to lead a multinational policing team in Haiti, saying that it violates the constitution and citing an active case in court. George Maringa with the details.
A month after President William Ruto affirmed to the country that the deployment of Kenyan police to the violence-rocked Caribbean nation of Haiti remains firmly on course,
I look forward to an expeditious consideration of this request in the light of the dire situation in Haiti.
The National Assembly on Thursday debated the report by the National Assembly's Committee on Administration and Internal Security. The motion, however, sparked defiance from opposition MPs.
And indeed, by the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya, we cannot proceed with the debate on this motion until this matter in court is heard and determined one way or the other.
The Kenya Kwanza MPs, however, defended the move by the government.
So, Honorable Speaker, we go back to the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land. We are mandated to debate a matter that has been moved to us by the National Security Council, as provided for under Article 240, Honorable Speaker.
This matter and this motion is, one, rightly before the House. Two, there is absolutely nothing sub judice in the House debating and approving, if the House agrees with the motion, approving the deployment of our officers to Haiti.
The back and forth would continue. Deputy Speaker Gladys Boss would then open the floor for debate.
This House approves the deployment of the officers of the National Police Service to the Multinational Security Support Mission to Haiti.
The heated debate that lasted close to 2 hours saw both sides of the House express their opinion as each stood their guns. When all was said and done, the motion was subjected to a vote and the ayes had it. The Haiti mission stands approved by Parliament. 1,000 police officers will lead the peacekeeping mission in Haiti. According to Gabriel Tongoya, chairperson of the Parliament's Committee on Administration and Internal Security, all costs of the deployment would be funded by the United Nations. The planned deployment was blocked by the High Court in Nairobi in October. On Thursday, Burundi, Chad, Senegal, Jamaica and Belize had all pledged troops for the multinational mission. Violence has escalated in Haiti as a heavily armed gang surrounded a hospital in the capital, Port-au-Prince, on Wednesday, trapping patients who included 40 children and newborns. Police later rescued the people. Gangs across Haiti have continued to grow more powerful since the 2021 assassination of President Jovenel Moise, and the number of kidnappings and killings keeps rising. Eyes will be on how the Kenya police will execute the mission in Haiti. George Maringa, TV47, Nairobi.
Now, still on matters security, police in Baringo have arrested a suspect believed to be the leader of a bandit group that has been causing chaos in Tiati, Baringo County. Police also recovered 2 guns and 15 rounds of ammunition.
Police say they have been tracking down the suspect for the last 4 years, and his arrest is a major breakthrough in war on banditry in the North Rift region. This is the 3rd suspect arrested in the ongoing operation in the North Rift region aimed in taming banditry.
Ya intelligence yetu multi-agency tuliweza kumshika kule pande ya Kapedo na akatuelekeza kwa mali alikuwa, na tukapata bunduki 2 na risasi 15.
Meanwhile, in Baringo South, one of the regions that had been adversely affected by banditry, forcing a section of residents to flee their homes, a grim picture remained of vandalized schools that were used by bandits as their homes and cowsheds. Kenya Defence Forces has since commenced the construction of schools that were vandalized by bandits in Baringo South constituency. Project, which has been allocated a budget of 100 million, aims to restore normalcy to the affected schools and provide a safe learning environment for the students.
Kati ya ile mashule zote ya North Rift
ambaye inaenda kufanyiwa renovation ili watoto wetu ambao wameumia kwa muda wakikimbia, wakitoroka kwa sababu ya banditry, wanapata nafasi tena ya kusoma na kukasana na kuendesha elimu.
During a visit to Kabidisama and Arabal primary schools, Baringo County Commissioner, accompanied by a team of KDF officers led by Brigadier Ahmed Saman, outlined the reconstruction plan. One will focus on rebuilding the vandalized classrooms, followed by the construction of new ones.
Moja ni ile vandalization ilifanyika April, na ndio unaona shule hii kabisa karibu kila kitu ilikuwa imeharibika, na tunasema tunashukuru kwa yale tunaona. Ile kabisa tunaona imeharibiwa ni fence. Wakora kabisa walikuwa wanakuja kupigilia marisasi hapa nyuma yote.
A plea to the displaced locals, Baringo South MP Charles Kamuren urged them to return to their homes to allow their children to resume schooling. He emphasized the importance of open communication between administration and parents to facilitate the safe return.
Now, even before the dust settles on the second attempted impeachment facing Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza, the storm facing the county of Meru and its leadership is far from over. This as debate now moves to the dissolution of the county. The governor has welcomed the idea, saying she is ready for fresh elections.
When she was making her way back home after surviving her second impeachment attempt at the Senate, little did she know that she was heading back to a fresh storm. Just days later, there seems to be little or no light at the end of the tunnel in as far as her relationship between the governor and members of the county assembly. The latest indication being the move by 15 residents of Meru who on Wednesday petitioned the Meru County Assembly to impeach members of the Central Committee of the Cabinet of Governor Kawira Mwangaza for allegedly violating the Constitution and legal laws. The petitioners cited several reasons why they wanted the county secretary and cabinet secretary, 6 county secretaries, 3 senior officials, and the chief of staff to be removed. And before that, a resident by the name Michael Kibudha moved to the High Court seeking a reversal of decision by the Senate to quash Mwangaza's impeachment, citing the whole process of saving Mwangaza violated the Constitution. On the other hand, another resident by the name Henry Mureithi has asked President William Ruto to dissolve the Meru County government as it has failed to perform its duties due to the current conflict. Well, on an interview with one of the local stations in the region, Governor Mwangaza welcomed the call to dissolve the county government, saying she's ready for fresh elections. Optimistically, the governor said she knows she will be re-elected if it's the will of the people of Meru. One of the Constitution, the president may suspend a county government in an emergency arising out of internal conflict or war in any other exceptional circumstances. This is happening when the ward representatives have camped in Mombasa to strategize on the way forward after the Senate shocker. Nelly Lusigi, TV47.
Thank you, Lusigi, for that. Now, the government has defended the government-to-government oil supply contracts, saying that the deal has helped ease the dollar crisis in the country. This as opposition leader Raila Odinga called on the EACC to investigate the deal and hold responsible those he claims circumvented the due process for their personal gain.
Months after the government opted to go the G2G way in the supply of oil, the move has lit flames of back and forth and finger-pointing between the opposition and the government on whether the deal reached its intended purpose, which was to ensure a reduction in the cost of fuel. Azimio leader Raila Odinga took a swipe at the Kenya Kwanza government, claiming the government-to-government oil supply deal was not achieving its intended purpose since the cost of fuel has not been lowered as expected. He now wants government officials behind the deal suspended.
The characterization of this deal as a G2G was meant to shield the 3 Kenyan companies from paying the 30% corporate tax. I will return to this matter later.
But in a rejoinder, Energy CS Davis Chirchir has insisted that the deal exists and indeed has helped ease the dollar crisis facing many countries globally. In a statement late Thursday, Chirchir says that the government-to-government arrangement eliminated the artificial demand that 130 oil marketing companies were creating by moving from bank to bank in search of the same quantity of USD, but which the market interpreted as additional demand promoting speculative tendencies. As a result, the Kenya shilling depreciation against the USD reduced from 3% to 1% month on month by removing a third of the country's USD demand by moving from monthly spot purchase of petroleum products that were existing about USD 500 million per month. According to Odinga, the government's move to take that route was meant to shield 3 companies from Kenya for paying 30% corporate tax.
They buy at low prices, delay discharging, then ask to be allowed to offload at higher prices, and the cost is passed on to the consumers. In the case of Oryx, it had bought the diesel at an average Platts price of $97.88. That is 14,182 shillings per barrel in July.
Sentiments that have rubbed the National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah the wrong way.
The very first corporate entities and corporate groups that he had an appointment to see, sought an appointment to see him, and he met with them, were oil marketers in Kenya. We want to remind Kenyans that at the time, and this group was led by the CEO of Vivo Energy, and you can check because it is a public domain, the president did meet with oil marketers, and they told him they were choked by the policies of the previous regime.
Issues to do with the fuel price in Tanzania, which seem to be going down, also featured on Odinga's statement. The CS clarifying that the disparity in price computation between Kenya and Tanzania is as a result of differences in the pricing methodologies that creates a large effect. The impact of the different pricing methodologies has resulted to a temporary price advantage to Tanzania in a declining market. On reports that Uganda has ditched Kenya for its fuel imports, the government says Raila called out the government of Kenya for saying the move by Uganda denies Kenya a profit of at most 15 billion shillings. But according to Chirchir, the Northern Corridor still remains the most competitive in the transportation of petroleum products to Kampala and the adjacent countries, which have traditionally been supplied through Kenya, and that there has been no change in the transit volumes to Uganda and the neighboring countries through the Kenya Pipeline Company Limited.
Former Prime Minister Raila Odinga's statement pertaining oil deals in the country is likely to trigger another debate among Kenyans at a time Kenyans are suffering due to the high cost of living. Paul Kirobi, TV47, Nairobi.
Thank you, Paul, for that. Now, police officers are looking at a 40% salary increment in the next 3 years if the recommendations from the task force led by former Chief Justice David Maraga is implemented. President William Ruto today received the report at State House, where he maintained that some of the reforms recommended have long been overdue. Sheila Chelangat with more.
For 11 months, the David Maraga-led task force had embarked on the assignment from President William Ruto to look into the constraints affecting service delivery of the National Police Service, Kenya Police Service, and the National Youth Service. And Thursday afternoon, the President received their final report. If implemented, as from the 1st of July 2024, salaries of members of the 3 services will be raised by 40% at the lowest constable level on their current salary, while those of the highest rank will receive a 3% increment in basic salary. This new structure expected to be implemented in 3 phases.
I think it is a well-considered recommendation. We will now await the workings of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission to make the necessary adjustments so that we can implement this recommendation.
Police welfare is expected to improve, with the recommendations vouching for provision of proper medical cover and housing. The president continued to warn those involved in corruption in the forces, which was indicated as rampant.
Corruption has been cited quite frequently and described as systemic, endemic, entrenched, deeply embedded, and rampant.
Report indicated that slots during police recruitment were being sold for up to even 600,000 Kenyan shillings.
Recruitment and promotion of members of the police service will be made transparent, competitive, and merit-based. The entry qualifications for all services will be raised to align with the expected competencies of officers, but without losing sight of the imperative to implement affirmative action.
Underfunding in the 3 forms of service was also pinpointed as an issue that affected service delivery. In the report, there were severe supply gaps, putting a strain on the capabilities of the police.
None of the services covered in the report receive adequate funding or even anywhere near it. The inappropriate processes and structures involved in recruiting, supporting, deploying, and promoting officers render the entire sector vulnerable to inefficiency, low professional standards, operational ineptitude, ethical lapses and malpractices, and general institutional decay.
Meanwhile, no single police officer will be serving at a station for more than 3 years. The David Maraga task force that consists of 20 members was appointed by President William Ruto on the 21st of December 2022. Sheila Chelangat for TV47.
Right, on that note by Sheila Chelangat, we wish to take a short break. But when we come back, we'll be talking about children in conflict with the law. What happens when people who are underage get in trouble with the law, when they commit a crime or they make a mistake and they have to deal with the criminal justice system? We want to talk about that. So let us know what you think. Let us know if you have any questions, because with us we have the CEO of the Kenya National Crime Research Institute, and he's going to be talking to us a lot about this particular subject. And once again, I ask you to send in your feedback to me and to the CEO of the National Crime Research Center, who's going to be with us this evening. The SMS line, or rather WhatsApp line, is at the bottom corner of your screen. The other number for the call-ins, you can call in and send in your message or your question, is also on your screen right about now. With all that and so much more, we'll be right back after the break. The news that matters the most is the one that hits close to home. When disasters strike, we are there to inform you. When the bullets are flying, we tell you who's shooting and why. Reporting on your victories, your health, your money, your security, your past, present, and future. We are interested in telling the stories of creativity, hard work, and resilience that you are known for. That is our job. This is my job. My name is Victor Muyakane, and it's my honor to bring you this news this way every Thursday night on the Home of Untold Stories.
Katika majengo haya, hapa ndipo sheria zinapotungwa na zinapopakuliwa. Nitakuletea viongozi mbalimbali, mirengo mbalimbali, wote kwa pamoja wakipika na kupakua. Tutawapa nafasi kuweza kuangazia changamoto na mafanikio ya ugatuzi katika ukumbi wa siasa, kila siku ya Jumanne kuanzia saa 1 kamili na kuendelea.
Toka eneo hili la Naivasha kwenye kaunti 032, gatuzi la Nakuru.
Kutoka kaunti ya Elgeyo Marakwet, kaunti 028.
Nikiripotia runinga ya TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Wajir.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Turukana.
Kwa matukio yote yanayojiri katika kaunti hii 012.
Kutoka kaunti nambari 1, kaunti ya Mombasa.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Lamu.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka Kisii County.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Machakos,
kutoka kaunti hii ya Trans Nzoia,
kaunti 038.
Kutoka gatuzi nambari 029, kaunti ya Nandi, chemichemi ya mabingwa.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Kakamega.
Itakuwa nikiripotia runinga ya TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Bungoma.
Jina langu ni Paula Munio.
Willy Dennis Jiru.
Fabian Kibet.
Mimi ni Hashim Jimal.
Mimi ni Kitio Mika Masai.
John Javakiania.
Jina langu ni Abdulaziz Nameka.
Mimi ni Kombo Alfayo.
Jina langu ni Nicholas Mbai.
Isaac Famba.
Mimi ni Wanji Sosti.
Jina langu ni Arnold Adidi. Jina langu ni Chris Bet.
Jina langu ni Violet Auma.
Na TV47 inapotamba, mimi Sheila Chelangat nitakuwa nikiripotia maswala yanayokuhusu wewe kila kuchao. Every Thursday 7:30 p.m. unapata nafasi kufahamu viongozi mbalimbali kutoka humu nchini, kuanzia wabunge.
Through Changa we could get money to pay our rent, pay our bills.
When I was growing up, water was a problem where I was born and bred. We wake up at 3 to go and look for water.
Magavana
must be ready to be a tough woman and not a woman to be walked over.
Kwa hivyo
but you respect people.
Dari ya mfahamu kiongozi, story na historia, na mi Elizabeth Mutuku.
Right, good evening and welcome to Insight Tonight. My name is Victor Moyakane. If you're joining us right now, we want to talk about what happens when children get into conflict with the law. What happens when a child or somebody who is underage commits a crime? What happens to them? What should happen to them? What is currently happening to them? And what can we do about it? And with us to help us understand exactly what this is from many different angles is actually somebody who I just learned recently refers to himself as a recovering journalist. Karibu sana. You are the CEO of the National Crime Research Center, Dr. Mutuma Rutere. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much for having me.
Karibu sana.
Thank you.
First of all, you need to explain to Kenyans why we have to recover from journalism. But that's a story for another day. Tell me something, sir. Where do we stand as a country when it comes to children in conflict with the law?
Yeah.
What are the numbers, perhaps, right now?
Well, thank you very much, first of all. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
And of course, one of the major challenges that we have always is numbers, getting the actual numbers of how many children are in conflict. The law, we know about 130 out of 100,000 children come into conflict with the law in the criminal justice system. Now, when you're talking about children in conflict with the law, what we mean is a child who is either suspected or accused of committing an offense.
Right.
Those are the children we are referring to as being in conflict with the law.
So this is even before conviction or sentencing?
Precisely.
A suspect?
Precisely.
A suspected criminal in that way, or a suspected lawbreaker, and an accused lawbreaker, just at that level.
Yes.
Then that means that's quite a lot of people.
Yes, and that's why we are not calling them criminals. We're saying they're in conflict with the law. They could have probably been taken to the police station, or anyone in the criminal justice system has been called because they are suspected. And of course, the treatment of children is different from that of adults, because fundamentally, the treatment of children is meant to be for in everything you do must be in the best interest of the child. In that respect, the criminal justice system would try to avoid incarceration, detention of children, institutionalization of children, but rather to promote mechanisms that give children a second chance, that get them away or divert them away from the criminal justice system, that reintegrate and rehabilitate them. And of course, if they are very young children, then of course they don't enter the criminal justice system.
Wow. You know what? At this point, I still want to reach out to those who are watching us from home right now. This is a very big subject. It's a very important subject. All of us at home who are watching us, you have a connection with someone who is a child who is or has been in conflict with the law, by the definition that good CEO has given us. And perhaps even you, when you were a child, you may have been in conflict with the law at some point. We want you to participate in this conversation. We want you to send in your questions. The WhatsApp number is at the bottom of your screen. The phone number is also at the bottom of your screen. Call in. We will record that. We will have your question aired live. If you have a question on WhatsApp, send it. I have the WhatsApp with me right here, and I'll be able to capture it and read it and be able to have a good guest give an answer to that. So please, I urge you to communicate with us. Somebody sent a question a little bit earlier, and they were asking, what are the needs? What needs does a child have whenever they come into, when they encounter the law, or the law enforcement agencies, or even what we call the criminal justice system? Great. What rights does a child have?
Great, thank you. That's a great question. And the National Crime Research Center, which I hand as the Director CEO, we actually recently did a study that tried to actually look at what are the needs of children, how are those needs being met, where are the challenges and the gaps. Some of the needs that we have identified from that study is one is legal representation. When children come into conflict with the law, they need legal representation. The law provides for children actually to have a legal aid, and that legal assistance is not charged to the child. It's drawn from legal aid. Children are also in need of counseling. Remember,
I'm so sorry.
Yes.
Let me stop you right there. I think this is something our people need to emphasize that. If you are a child, if somebody gets into trouble with the law, they are entitled to legal representation. And this is not charged. It is part of legal aid. I think that's something people at home need to hear that. Thank you so much. And the second, you're saying something.
Thank you. Then children, of course, some of the other needs are counseling, psychological support. Obviously, children who, remember, they are still growing, they will need education. They don't stop education, even whatever stage they are or whatever they are in the criminal justice system. Children must always be provided education because it's a right and responsibility of the community and the state.
Right.
Basic needs, the children, remember, wherever they are, the children need those basic needs, and we have the responsibility to provide. So there are all these needs because they are still growing.
Right.
And it's ultimately the responsibility of the various actors in the justice system to ensure that these needs are met.
Actually met. And that's good. I think it's a very critical point to be made. And the second question that would come from that is, what in our Kenyan criminal justice system or ecosystem is in place to meet these needs?
Thank you. Yes, as I've pointed out, our legal system is very, very robust in terms of the protections of the child. Going to the Constitution, that the test for every action taken, for every process is the best interest of the child. That is what must guide whether it is a court process, whether it is the diversion process. Now, remember, children, if, for instance, they have to be charged with offenses, we have children's courts. Their matters go to the children's court. These are to be held in camera, these trials or prosecution. There is a protection so that information about their cases is not released to the public.
Right.
And again, I said, there is also a diversion program. The prosecution and other actors have a responsibility where it is merits to actually divert these children from going to the criminal justice system. In diversion, what you are talking about is actually, for instance, provide them opportunities to go and reconcile, to go and make amends with the person they have wronged, so that they can now get into rehabilitation and be reintegrated. They could actually also be released to the custody of someone who is fit and responsible. A guardian of sorts. Okay. These children also could be committed to if, for instance, they have committed offenses that require a form of institutionalization. We have the Bosto institutions.
Right.
Which are under the prison system.
Are those what used to be called approved schools?
The approved school used to be different. They were different. Now they are called. They have a different term now. Okay. And the model of those schools was basically you give them a shock. But that doctrine, that philosophy has been abandoned. Right. Now,
which was quite traumatizing.
Which was quite traumatizing. Yeah. Right now is basically the focus is on rehabilitation.
Right.
Now, the Bosto institutions, those are only 3 in Kenya, and they are really the ones that where the children have committed certain form of offenses, they say like murder, then they can be taken through those institutions until some time.
Right.
So, but then there are many other mechanisms that actually take care of the children. We've talked about this diversion program. They can also be sent to carry out community service. Or there could be a question where they actually pay a fine. When it comes to a fine, the parents or the guardian may be the ones the ones to pay the fine.
Cost, yes.
So there are many options of dealing with the children who find themselves in conflict with the law through the criminal justice system.
Now, there's a question here that came in a little bit earlier when we teased this, and it was around, so someone was expressing concern. This person has actually been in contact with the criminal justice system. They've been remanded at one of the remand centers across the country. And they said when they were there for a few weeks, awaiting their case. When they were there, they witnessed underage people in those remand centers, put in the same spaces as adults. And not just adults, they were mixing them, according to the person, they were mixing them with hardened criminals and so on. And so they were worried that these people, these young people, would come out even more hardened, or even more perhaps radicalized, or sent on a path of no return. What would be your response to that?
Yes, and you are right. And these are some of the gaps and weaknesses in the system. Children, for instance, are not supposed to be held or detained, even temporarily, in the same space as adults. I mean, for obvious reasons, their vulnerability. But we know there are many instances where this happens. We know many of the detention facilities, like police stations, don't have sometimes separate cells or holding centers. Actually, they should not be in cells. There have been guidelines issued on that, about that even by the Chief Justice. If you go to some of the police stations, you will see them, that children should not be held in the same room or the same holding facility with adults for the reasons that you have mentioned. Children are very vulnerable, and when you put them together with adults, many things can go wrong. So these are some of the challenges and gaps in the criminal justice system.
You know, there's a tendency to kind of write off some of the children that actually get involved at whatever level with what might be considered criminal behavior or antisocial behavior, or even, as we call them, in conflict with the law. There's a tendency to write them off. Huyu ameharibika, yake imeisha. What would you say to those kinds of beliefs? Maybe even born out of frustration of the crime that allegedly has been committed.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. First of all, we need to study better why children, for instance, would get into conflict with the law. There are many reasons. There's often an assumption that it's because of a flaw in their character, and therefore we need to punish them or give up on them. But we know that there are many reasons, many vulnerabilities that actually lead young people into that kind of behavior. Some of them are contextual, about the environment. What do children do during holidays? If they are only hanging around a place where drugs are being sold, they are young people, they are experimenting. The temptation to get into drugs is very high.
Right.
So the alternatives is the responsibility of the society and the adults and the community to ensure that we provide alternatives to ensure that this vulnerability of children is actually addressed. The principle is that no child is beyond correction. One can even extend that to human beings. The reason why, even to adults, even the reason why we call our prison service correction service is because the belief is that these are correction services. No one is beyond correction. No one is beyond rehabilitation. Less so a child whose character is only forming.
Right.
There is no basis, there is no point where we say this one we have to give up on them.
Right. There's a question here. Two questions actually that have come in. Earlier on, just before we began, we were talking about a particular prescribed group, but all across the country and all across the world, the issue of organized crime and criminal gangs is something that a lot of people can actually say they've experienced, either as victims or even as witnesses to this. Could you help us understand? Because one of the concerns, even now among stakeholders, is not just radicalization of children, but also the recruitment of children into organized gangs and organized criminal activity. What would you say is the reason that draws so many of our young people into these gangs? And what is this thing that can be done, sort of if there's a gap to fill it, to prevent this from happening?
Great. This is a major challenge. This is an issue of concern. We have seen juvenile gangs in places such as the coast. This is a big challenge. Gangs of young children as young as 12.
Wow.
And really, what does research tell us? Part of it is that at that age, all these young people want to belong. They are looking to belong to something bigger. All young children, when we were growing up, you rambled to be that kind of a tough person was the most attractive thing. Here are gangs that provide the possibility of belonging to such a group, to feel powerful. And when these children don't have the community and the social structures to guide them away from these groups, it becomes very, very easy for them to be recruited. So it is no surprise. Globally, you see that the attraction to such groups is very prevalent. I mean, they say the devil always has the best tunes. So you competing with the music from the devil and the music from Go on the Right Path, using that illustration. You preaching to your children to follow the right thing or the right path, whereas there's another group here that is looking very attractive. You can get money, you can feel powerful, you don't need to follow what you are being told. I mean, this feels great for a child if they don't have other options and they don't have the care and the guidance. And so it is a symptom of problems within the society itself, rather than necessarily a character flaw, within these children.
You say that, and I remember there's a report from the University of Kingston in Jamaica. I may forget exactly what it says to the letter, but the gist of it was There's a very popular artist in Jamaica by the name of Adidja Palmer. They know him as Vybz Kartel. Vybz Kartel is in prison right now for murder. And he has been incredibly influential to generations of youth in that country. And a lot of his music has been criticized as to having perhaps what you might call antisocial messaging, a lot of criminal encouragement and so on. And some people who've been caught up in the Jamaican criminal justice system have actually pointed back to Vybz Kartel as an artist and the messaging in his music as part of the things that kind of influenced them into crime. Can you talk to us about the role of role models and people like that in society in shaping the fates of these generations?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's the reason why one of the very important interventions when you are dealing, for instance, with young people who have gotten into gangs and trying to bring them out of gangs is to think of what role models, who are they going to listen to?
Yes.
Chances are they are not going to listen to their elders. So who do the young people listen to? They are listening to people who are seen to be against the system, counterculture, and so rebels. This is the nature of young people and the nature of youth. It looks cool. So you have a competition between those kind of messages and the messages that says don't do that. This is the major challenge. So where are the young people therefore being trained or being socialized to gain the critical skills that even though these kind of vibes and lyrics sound very cool, that's not what I need to actually follow. So the role of critical skills in the education system, in other institutions of socialization are so important. It is not by saying don't listen, but by giving them the skill to choose that I don't want to follow this particular, and giving them alternative role models that they can live up to. Mentorship is one of the major important interventions when it comes to crime prevention or breaking that cycle of recruitment into criminal activities. Who are the young boys looking up to?
Who are heroes?
Who are their heroes?
Right.
You know, there was a story that I was listening to on BBC that I was saying in the UK that, young women are, the only area that actually young men are ahead of young women is crime.
Wow.
This is in the UK. And you could say that in many countries.
That the average criminal is male.
Is male and young.
Wow.
There is part of the reason is who are the role models for the young men and young boys and young children.
That's a question for society to answer.
Absolutely.
Talk to us a little bit about, quick one, there's a gentleman here. We've just got a question from one of our viewers. Isaiah Munyao from Umoja 1 in Nairobi is asking, can a person who's over 18 years old and be college still be termed as a child? Or what age limits a child?
Yes, no. The simple answer is no. In our law, you are not a child if you are over 18. Once you're over 18, you're not a child. Even if in the criminal justice system, somewhere incarcerated, once you reach that age, then you moved to the adult part.
So 18
is the age of majority.
You know, I think I understand where Isaiah Munyao is coming from, because there's also the so-called legal age for drinking and a few other things is 21.
Yes.
So between 18 and 21, a lot of people still think,
Yes.
we are still children.
Yes.
Also, another question that came here is, at what age does the legal system use to deal with this child? Is it the age at the time of commission of the crime, alleged commission or accused commission of the crime, or is it the age as at when they actually appear in front of the court? Which is which?
Yes, when you are arrested, say you are 17 years old and then you turn 18 as the process is going on, by that time you have transitioned.
Oh, wow.
So once you transition, then the determination then, the determination where you go after that will be determined by when you have transitioned. But when you committed the offense, it's when you committed the offense. That is the basis of determining your culpability. But where you go after that, the age you have reached will be determined. For instance, if you committed an offense, you're under 12 years old, you're not criminally culpable, right? So even if you have turned 13 or 14, but you're being tried when you're 13, 14, and you commit an offense
when you're
12, you're not criminally culpable.
I see.
Yes. So I hope that clarifies.
That indeed does clarify that. And earlier on, when people knew that you were coming, I was given a question to ask you.
Yes.
They said, what happens when somebody commits a crime, particularly there's this crime, defilement. Let me call it that as a crime.
Yes.
There are concerns that, for example, and I was given a scenario, and allow me to relate just to you.
Sure.
A young man is 17 years old. Oh, we have a call. We'll hold on that for a second. Hello, good evening. How are you?
Hello, good evening. Hello.
Yes, Ndugu, how are you?
Yes, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Where are you watching us from?
I'm calling you from Kakamega.
Oh, excellent. What is your name, sir?
Yeah, my name is George.
Oh, George. And what is your question tonight?
My question is it approved schools better than taking children to juvenile prison?
Just say that again?
I'm asking about these children who are taken to juvenile prison.
Okay.
Is it approved schools better than taking them to juvenile prison?
Right. Have you got the question?
No.
I think he's asking, isn't approved schools better than taking children to prison? Is that your question, sir?
Yes, that's the question.
All right. Thank you so much, George from Kakamega. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Our CEO here will answer your question, and thank you for watching.
Yes.
All right. We also have somebody here from Uganda. They're actually watching online from Uganda. They're going to send, let me ask them to send their question. Right, so would you have an answer to this? I think they're wondering, is approved schools better as an option than sending children to prison?
Yes, thank you very much for that question. Sending children to prison is the last resort, is the worst possible outcome. If that is any process that leads to incarceration of children in the Boston institutions, which is where they are sent, it's really the very last resort. The approved schools, right now what we have are actually the youth correctional centers. So they are about correction. They are no longer about the toughness of approved schools, but they are correctional in the sense that if you commit, you're a first offender, you're taken through a correctional service, they help you correct your behavior, counseling, and then you are out of the process. So these are not prisons, but they are just, you go through a process of correcting your behavior with mentorship.
And I think just to remind our audiences, you said there was a change in terms of the philosophy behind these institutions, that approved schools were there for shock value, to put the fear of God in these children. But the approach has changed to now one of rehabilitation.
Exactly.
Okay, all right.
Exactly.
George from Kakamega, I hope that's clear. If it's not, call back again and we'll be happy to sample that question. Back to the question that we had before. I was given a scenario. A young man is 17 years old who's just finishing Form 4, is in a relationship with a younger student, say 14-year-old, 15-year-old or 16-year-old, and then there is a pregnancy, or perhaps the relationship, which is a sexual relationship, is discovered, and the young man is arrested and tried as an adult for the charge or accusation of defilement. And a lot of, so the person who said this said, a lot of young people have been caught up in this and have suffered tremendously because of this. What would be, from where you sit, what would be your assessment of this situation?
Well, thank you very much. I think this is a big issue, particularly the issue of sexual offenses, a lot of cases in the judicial system, in the prison system. There's been a lot of discussion about that, and the proposal to introduce what is called Romeo and Juliet clause, where it's a relationship between young people who are both below 18, the approach is not necessary to criminalize it and see it as defilement. But when it is young people between themselves, that process I know is of changing the law has been ongoing, unless of course it's rape, which is very different, but the consensual relationship between underage, both underage children is something that society needs to face, society needs to think about, and address, because it's a reality.
It's a reality.
Yes.
Thank you for that distinction. We are getting even more feedback. We actually have a viewer from Uganda, Hersketh Ogwok Morris, and we'll be sampling his question a little bit later. But for now, let's take a short break. And we'll be right back. And we're borrowing some time from your favorite sports show, VAR, which will come right after we are finished with this very, very important conversation. So VAR fans, please bear with us. We'll be right back. The news that matters the most is the one that hits close to home. When disasters strike, we are there to inform you. When the bullets are flying, we tell you who's shooting and why. Reporting on your victories, your health, your money, your security, your past, present, and future. We are interested in telling the stories of creativity, hard work, and resilience that you are known for. That is our job. This is my job. My name is Victor Moyakane, and it's my honor to bring you this news this way every Thursday night on the Home of Untold Stories.
Katika majengo haya, hapa ndipo sheria zinapotungwa na zinapopakuliwa. Nitakuletea viongozi mbalimbali, mirengo mbalimbali, wote kwa pamoja wakipika na kupakua. Tutawapa nafasi kuweza kuangazia changamoto na mafanikio ya ugatuzi katika ukumbi wa siasa, kila siku ya Jumanne kuanzia saa 1 kamili na kuendelea.
Toka eneo hili la Naivasha kwenye kaunti 032, gatuzi la Nakuru.
Kutoka kaunti ya Elgeyo Marakwet, kaunti 028.
Nikiripotia runinga ya TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Wajir.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Turukana.
Kwa matukio yote yanayojiri katika kaunti hii 012.
Kutoka kaunti nambari 1, kaunti ya Mombasa.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Lamu.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka Kisii County.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Machakos.
Kutoka kaunti hii ya Trans Nzoia.
Kaunti 038.
Kutoka gatuzi nambari 029, kaunti ya Nandi, chemichemi ya mabingwa.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Kakamega.
Itakuwa nikiripotia runinga ya TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Bungoma.
Jina langu ni Paula Munio.
Willy Dennis Jiru.
Fabian Kibet.
Mimi ni Hashim Jimal.
Mimi ni Kitio Mika Masai.
John Javakiania.
Jina langu ni Abdulaziz Nameka.
Mimi ni Kombo Alfayo.
Jina langu ni Nicholas Mbai.
Isaac Famba.
Mimi ni Wanji Sosti.
Jina langu ni Arnold Adidi.
Jina langu ni Chris Bet.
Jina langu ni Violet Auma.
Na TV47 inapotamba, mimi Sheila Chelangat nitakuwa nikiripotia maswala yanayokuhusu wewe kila kuchao. Every Thursday 7:30 p.m. unapata nafasi kufahamu viongozi mbalimbali kutoka humu nchini.
Right, if you're joining us right now on Insight Tonight, we're talking about when children get into conflict with the law. And we're looking at some of those questions, and some of you have actually sent in your questions. First question from Hesketh Ogwok Morris from Uganda, who's watching via satellite. What are the crime prevention strategies among children? And I think I'll connect that to another question that we have here around the treatment of children who get into conflict with the law when they encounter law enforcement officers, people in the criminal justice system. How prepared, how trained, how sensitized are they to be able to deal with these children as children? Let's connect those two questions and we'll answer the rest.
Yes.
Please.
Thank you very much. The question of prevention is very important because the whole focus on children is on prevention, that they actually don't reach that stage. And really where to look at is the places where they are likely to get into problems. The problems of bullying in schools, for instance. When these problems are left unattended and unaddressed over time, they can escalate to conflict and change behavior. The traumas that children sometimes might get into that makes them actually behave in a way that leads them into a conflict with the law. The vulnerabilities of the environment where they are, when children are left unattended and supervised, what happens to them? So the whole system of ensuring that actually we are all the time aware of where the risks might come for the children, and addressing those risks is so important in ensuring that children don't get into the criminal justice system.
Right. But then they find themselves
for one reason or the other. So
the reception they get from the officers.
Precisely. And the area of the capacity of not just officers but also others in the criminal justice system is one of the gaps we have identified even in our studies.
So there's a problem.
There's a problem in terms of the training, in terms of the strengthening of the capacities, and this is something that has to be done on and on in a continuous basis. Understanding how to treat children so that actually you rehabilitate them, you correct them, you put them in the path of away from the criminal justice system. This is an issue that has been identified by all the studies, that there are gaps in that.
Right. There's another question here around when these children are mixed with others, and then some things happen. Some of these children in holding facilities are sexually abused. Others are bullied by other detainees and so on. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yes. This is a big challenge. This is a big problem. But I must, let me also paint a positive picture. I know many officers in many police stations who sometimes when they are faced with having to keep children and they have nowhere to put them, some go even with them to their homes.
Oh, yes.
And they will try to get an office to put them. So there are many, many good examples among the police officers, among other officials, of what actually is being done right. Because as I said, the idea is to ensure that these children are not placed in a situation where they can actually be violated, even if they might be in conflict with the law.
Right.
That because, again, remember the principle is the best interest of the child.
Best interest of the child. And one last question here. We're entirely out of time. Thank you, VAR, for the time. Is that there's something African parents do, and where they send a child to a police station. Maybe the child has has made a mistake or has misbehaved. So the child is taken to the police station to be toughened up, to see what would happen to them if they continue on this supposed path to crime. Or sometimes people are taken to prisons to toughen them up, to shock them, because hopefully that this shock will help in better behavior. What would you say to that?
I would say that probably a better option is to find ways in which police officers find a way to come and talk to children in schools, in the rest, in an unthreatening environment. When they are taken to the police station, they are already in fear. But when police officers are actually invited to come and speak to them in school on how to be a better person, your good behavior, when you see a police officer, you don't see a threat. Remember, when now you are taking a child to be to see those conditions, the next time a child sees a police officer, they will see someone they need to fear, and yet you are trying to create a condition where police officers are helpers. And they are the people to seek help from.
Yes.
They are the people to guide them to keep away from crime. So it subverts the model and the philosophy, even the kind of policing we are thinking about. So I would say, rather than taking the children to the police station, invite the police officers to the community to speak to the children so that they keep away from the path of crime.
Right, right. Now, in a moment, I want you to prepare a parting shot. Talk to the people. I don't want to say Kenyans because we have Ugandans who are watching.
Yes.
Talk to us. Give a message from your heart and from your community, from the organization that you lead, to the people. But for now, I want to say thank you so much for people who've been watching. Thank you. Let's keep the conversation going on X or Twitter. Respond to the videos that you see there. Share the message, and hopefully somebody will be able to be touched. Your parting shot. There's your camera right there. Speak directly to those who are watching you tonight.
Children across all cultures, they are actually considered vulnerable and the responsibility of the community. So we can't give up on the children. Whether they are seen to be in conflict with the law, it is a responsibility of all adults, all members of the community to work with the children to help them, because there's no child who is beyond the pale, who cannot actually be given a second chance. And that's the responsibility. That's why we keep working, that's the responsibility of the community, and that's why we keep working with the criminal justice actors to see that they improve. And we've seen a lot of progress, particularly with a very strong legal system that we have at the moment.
Your message of hope to people out there?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
A lot of good lessons, a lot of good work being done with children, with communities. Let's look at what is working and let's build on that. Let's not just see what is not working.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Terry. You are a recovering journalist.
Absolutely.
That's a story for another day.
Next time you invite me here.
Absolutely.
To sit where you are.
To sit, precisely.
Yes.
Good people, we want to say thank you so much for choosing TV47 to inform you of what's happening across your world tonight. We are humbled by that. We are the home of untold stories, and we thank you for choosing that. Isaiah Munyao from Umoja One, thank you so much for sending your question. Mr. Hesketh Ogwok Morris from Nakawa Division in Uganda, thank you for sending your message. Mariam and Emmanuel and Kayo, thank you so much for sending in your questions as well. My name is Victor Muyakane, and I bid you good night, full of God's blessings. Up next is VAR, rebooted